drug, and scheduled drugs cannot be used in the food or cosmetic. So I think we have to start to lobby from that point and step by step get it where we need it. But the discussion is really needed, and I hope we can open it this year. It was somehow struggling the communication between the lobbyists and the policymakers, so I hope this year we really begin strong lobbying and we achieve some goals.
Okay, thanks. Tony, you know, we think that we have real struggles in Europe, for example. Can you tell us a little bit about what the situation now is with in South Africa, because there were recent developments, yeah? So just give us an overview.
The biggest problem, I think, is still unfortunately the power of the federal government of the United States, because every government official I speak to in Africa tells me that they would have changed the law a long time ago if it wasn't for the pressure internationally that comes on us through debt, USAID, World Bank loans, IMF, and all of that still gets governed or comes through, filters through the states and gets a suppression of, you guys have to fight your drug war, and we don't care if you're using cannabis to build houses or feed people or medicate. It's all, cannabis is a drug no matter what. And our law comes from that. It says, in South Africa it still says cannabis, the whole plant, any product thereof is an undesirable dependence producing substance, which means I should go to jail for what I'm wearing. But we are making headway through putting it in through other avenues and through Department of Agriculture and Health. But still, that is the one point. As soon as the federal government changes in the States, we can change in Africa a lot faster. But just to say, where we see hemp is very much not, at the moment, we're stuck in a little niche of selling to rich people, building eco houses for people with a lot of money, selling hemp seed oil to greenies and raw fooders to already having coconut oil and flax oil and olive oil, and you don't really see a difference. The most exciting, and where apart from me and where the work really needs to be done, is in the townships in Africa. And there's no omega fatty acids, very low protein, and we've built a soup kitchen that has proved that model for us, because we see miracles there. We see people's immune systems turning around just by having hemp seed oil, not even medical marijuana or CBD. We see people experiencing living in a hemp building where they've only lived in metal shacks, your tin metal shacks, or in terrible, very, very poorly constructed cement buildings. So the impact that hemp can have in Africa from the base down, you know, the real jobs, houses, food, is so great. I've been in it for 22 years now, and I still haven't found another resource that could most uplift Africa and a lot of other rural and emerging economies. And Malawi as well, where we're working up there, is very exciting. It's the poorest country in the world, and they're gonna go for it first, because I think they realize that the grants aren't worth listening anymore, and they're not getting enough support from international, so they're going to take the decision to change the laws around cannabis, and hopefully they'll see they don't need grant funding for so much longer. So.
What about the situation with the whole licensing program? Because that's also a fresh thing, and some have claimed that you know, there was some people were shown favors in that situation.
Absolutely. So recently we had a bill going through Parliament, was put forward by a member of Parliament who had cancer, and he stood up in Parliament and said, the only reason I'm standing here is because I'm on cannabis and not on morphine, and that I can present this. And he pushed through a medical innovation bill that would have changed our law to allow people to choose medicines that aren't approved. If you were ill, you would have been able to go and say, I want high dose vitamin C or ozone or cannabis. And the ruling party took that bill off and said, don't worry, we're going to allow medical licenses, and we're going to change our law. But they haven't given a single license yet. They've given a few research licenses to very connected people. Basically, also we've seen that Big Pharma is there. They've suddenly told us now that CBD is Schedule 4, which means you need to get a prescription and get it from a pharmacy. Which, if you're making claims, which we thought, okay, well, if you're saying it's going to stop seizures or anything, that's okay. But then they said, if you're not making claims, Schedule 7, which for us puts it with heroin and cocaine and methamphetamine, CBD. So what's happened, we know, is one of the big pharmaceutical companies has come to South Africa, said, we're going to give you a Schedule 4 product, a medicinal product, but we want the rest of the market out. All of the health food supplements, everything must be out. So make those Schedule 7 the worst of the worst. Basically, you can go to jail straight away just for importing or selling it, and allow us to sell a pharmaceutical grade CBD. So we have a big fight on our hands, but it is in the Constitutional Court. We are challenging it. We are challenging it on 4 levels. Law is unconstitutional for not allowing industrial, medicinal, indigenous people's rights, or adult use. And indigenous people's rights is very interesting in South Africa and Africa, because our first Dutch governor in 1652 wrote about the Bushmen, the Khoi and the San, using cannabis. It's there in his diary. So they have a massive claim to it. And unfortunately, what many of you don't know, everyone blames the states for the laws against cannabis, but it actually started in South Africa. We had the first law in around 1815, 1816. It was called the Coolie Law. It was against the Indians bringing in really strong cannabis from India and then selling it to the black mine workers, who then weren't so keen to go down the deep, dark, scary hole for what they weren't being paid. And the white bosses took it to the UN and said, we want to add this to the Opium Act. So I'm sorry it started with us, but we're hopefully going to end it, because we have a very strong constitution, very human rights after apartheid. It's very human rights friendly. So our Constitutional Court cannot defend a law that is throwing people in jail for using this plant anymore. So hopefully that ruling will come down very soon.
Thanks. And Tony is emblematic to some extent of all of our panelists, because he's very, very his company is very, very much public service oriented. And this is frankly one of the things I really find to be a beautiful thing about the hemp industry. So let's take that opportunity to segue, Dear Eyes, to the work that you're doing, because as he mentioned in his self-introduction, he felt a power pushing him to go back and help his country after the earthquake in Nepal in 2015. Yeah? And what he and his wife are doing is a pretty special thing there, working with the very poor villagers, the so-called untouchables in Nepal, and training them and using the natural products that are right there at hand, and developing using the whole plant, which just grows there in the wild. And so if you could just tell us a little bit more about what you're doing in terms of the range of the products, and sort of about the Empowering Bottom-Up program, which is a program to economic development specifically for women. And so if you could just tell us a little bit more about what you're doing with your company in Nepal.
So the scenario in Nepal right now is that we have a lot of hemp, cannabis, wild plants that are growing everywhere. And the people have been using the plant for the past 30-40 years, even before the laws came in, for making all the textiles and the seeds. So even though cannabis is sort of illegal around the world, and even is considered illegal in Nepal, you get to see a lot of handicraft products that are made by local villagers who use it as a source of sustainability. The seeds they consume it, we have like a traditional pickled dish that people all over Nepal they eat, and you can find these seeds in the supermarket. So this thing is something more higher than the legal thing, it's more cultural. And since Lord Shiva and things are going from that region, so cannabis makes even a much more religious, and it is meant, it comes from there, and it is something of that part. So to use this thing that is already there as a part of our culture and taking it a step further, in the present modern times where we have the 21st century, we have all the modern technology and the latest innovation that our people are doing around the world. So we wanted to use these kind of things in a sustainable manner that can really help improve the quality of life. So when you want to improve the quality of life of yourself and the people around you, you gotta start from the bottom up. So we label this initiative as a Empowering Bottom Up. So in this initiative, what we try to do is get all these people in the villages who are unemployed, don't have any work, or don't have any food or shelter or basic quality of living. So helping them, helping us, working together in processing, developing products, training, skill development, everything. So in this way, we really help each other in improving everyone's quality of life from the bottom up. So from the bottom up, everyone's quality of life is getting better, and we're all coming to at a similar level of understanding and quality of living that I think people it's the same scenario all around the world where people are struggling to have a basic food, clothing or shelter that is has become necessity for people these days. So hemp is somehow can provide a very good source of these basic food, clothing and shelter to people. And this is what we're showcasing, and we're living that life, and we're showing that it's really possible and it can be done.
And tell us now the major project that is coming up in the construction business that you will be working on.
We started in the beginning after the earthquake. We started with building hemp houses. We are very fortunate to have Steve Allen, who's the president of International Hemp Building Association, come over to Nepal and develop some kind of a local technology that can be applicable in Nepal, using the materials from Nepal locally instead of importing things from outside. Since we already had hemp, most of our problems were solved, and it was very clear to start building. And we do our own processing of the materials, and we have in our initial project we built a hospital for the region where it's a huge necessity for people to have a proper medical facility, and now we are upgrading that hospital into a 100-bedded facility that is going to cover a larger area, over 200-kilometer radius, even most parts of India and everything. So this project is getting quite interesting, and we are getting a lot of support from local people and understanding of hemp, not just as a smoking plant, but the other uses that we have shown them that it is possible, and they're seeing it, and they're all coming together. So it's just a matter of time that we see some massive changes in our policies.
Now, the company itself, which started when?
2015.
Has grown fast.
Yeah.
All right? How are you managing?
Well, we're living it. Whatever we need, like we need to build a house, we need some textiles, some bags, we make it ourselves. I make my own soap and I use it, I make my own flour, oils, whatever. So these things are propagated throughout our community and people, so they even demand these products. We make these pain relief oils from hemp, which we use for just massage and muscular pains, which we are now providing to our hospital nearby, and this is like spreading like anything. Like in 5 minutes, it's an instant relief, and people can't imagine how effective these things are. So.
I'm asking you, how do you manage it?
I don't know, man. There's some force somewhere. It's driving me. I'm going with the flow.
You know you're next, because if we talk about fast growth,
Yes.
yeah, how do you manage it? Because